something we want to kind of keep an eye out for if those data sets do become available. But that's the main reason. There's just not the data behind it to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Holly. And finally, Frederic, you have a question?
Yeah, also to Holly, sorry, it's all the questions to you. So I was wondering, so the risk rating, is that based on combining the vulnerability indicators with sort of the hazard mapping, or how was the risk rating sort of, how did it come together?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. It's the
Okay.
the parameters behind it and the risk as well. So it's all in that methodology document, the PDF.
Okay.
On the actual on how it was done. Yeah.
So then sorry, just the last question, the overall risk is just combining heat and flood risk together? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, with those other parameters as well. Yeah.
Great question. Thank you, Frederic. And so that is the time up for theme 1, which was maps and models. And moving swiftly on to hubs and tools, and heading over to Marissa to tell you guys about the Local Climate Adaptation Tool.
Hi all. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to chat through our Local Climate Adaptation Tool. And to do that, I'm just going to also do a live demo. Just dive right in. Let me know if anything is glitchy or you can't see it. How does that look? Great. Perfect. Okay, so as this mentions, the Local Climate Adaptation Tool developed by the University of Exeter alongside a national stakeholder group will let you know how local climates will change, what health and community impacts may occur as a result, who will be most vulnerable and why, and which adaptations to consider. As noted, LCAT is evidence-based and designed with and for local decision makers. That is our national stakeholder group. We have a couple of helpful resources that we link out to here, one of which is an Introduction to Local Climate Adaptation Guide. This is a really good kind of introductory guide that can let various organizations and individuals understand why you need to adapt to climate adaptation, providing real-life examples, and also providing the principles for just and equitable adaptation. So this is a really good guide to get people involved that aren't normally involved in climate adaptation. We also have our user guide, which is regularly updated. The last link out that we have is to the Met Office Local Authority Climate Service. This is a new service that you haven't looked at. If you haven't looked into it yet, I'd definitely suggest looking at it. It provides local climate data similar to what we do, but in a slightly different way. And we also additionally provide information about specific impacts and adaptations. So they're slightly different tools, but they're complementary to one another. Initially, you're able to select your area of interest, and you can select from multiple areas. We also have different geographical layers. For this example, I'll look at local authority districts, but it goes down to parishes, MSOA, data zones, LSOA, and we also have data for the Isle of Man. The map is also searchable in addition to being movable and zoomable with these handy little arrows on the side. For this example, I will go to East Lothian, and then that one clicks on, and that shows that it's clicked on for yellow. If you wanted to do more than one, you can click on the map as well. Our first section is exploring your local climate. We present 4 variables from the future climate data for 2070: temperature, rainfall, cloudiness, and windiness. There are 2 dropdowns that can be changed to produce different data outputs. The first dropdown addresses 2 future climate pathways, depending on the actions and policies taken in the near future. The future pathways are RCPs, the representative concentration pathways. LCAT data shows existing global policies, which is RCP 6.0, and it also shows the worst case scenario, which is RCP 8.5. The second dropdown that you can changes the data output between yearly, winter, or summer average. We provide a surface level summary through icons in several of these sections in case you just want to kind of get that initial overview of the climate for your area, but we also do provide a section that is about exploring those details, and that is where you can see bar graphs of the climate data, and it's broken down over time. Again, you can change these dropdowns between worst case or existing, between yearly, summer, or winter, and then between the variables of temperature, rain, wind, or cloudiness. You can also look at your selected area only, or look at your area versus the UK. The next section that we have is what we call our climate hazard risk section. This section provides information about climate hazards the UK will face in the future. We identified these hazards based on the UN General Assembly definition. A hazard is a process, phenomenon, or activity that may cause loss of life, injury, or other health impact, property damage, social and economic disruption, or environmental degradation. Based on that definition, we identified these ones here: heat waves, wildfire, air quality, flooding, and coastal erosion as major ones for the UK. If you click on each of these icons, it provides a description of the hazard as well as the future trend. And then at the bottom of the section, we link out to a data source that provides localized risk to your area. Several of these are the UK CRI website. There are other ones for air quality, such as the DEFRA air quality tool. And then the coastal erosion and flooding ones have individual links. We don't yet have one for Northern Ireland, but that is to be added in this future when there is an adequate data set. The next section is what we call our climate impact summary section. While the above one, which was the climate hazard risk section, describes specific hazards and provides localized data sets for the risk of those hazards, this section, the climate impact summary, is a more comprehensive view for the UK as a whole of the direct and indirect impacts from a changing climate when many hazards interact in what we term climate impact pathways. The impacts to human health and well-being from the changing climate are complex, and we created these pathways in order to help you visualize the relationships involved and see where multiple disciplines and sectors have a role to play. The climate impact pathway are separated into 6 climate topics. We have extreme storms, flooding and drought, food and personal security, coastal security, temperature, and marine health hazards. After selecting a pathway from this drop-down here, you will then see 2 different summaries, again with that kind of surface level icon summary. One is about health impacts, the other is about community impacts. Again, we provide that option for further detail, and this is where I mentioned we have those climate impact pathways. These are going to be visual maps that allow you to explore the impacts to the UK and also the adaptations that are potentially relevant. We have 3 different views, the first being a summary. The next one we call complete, which is a full view of all of the impacts relevant to this specific climate topic. And then we have what is called complete with adaptations. And so that is all of those impacts. And then it also shows the adaptation options we've identified and where they interact. And you can zoom in on the side. This map is entirely interactive. You're allowed to click on the individual elements. It provides descriptions. We provide reference IDs. And there's even references on the connections between things. So for instance, if we go over to conserve and restore marine and coastal ecosystems, we can look at this connection to nature-based carbon storage. And there's a reference ID that connects those 2 things together and why we identified this as an adequate adaptation for nature-based carbon storage. The pathways are super in-depth. You could spend a long time exploring them, so I'll let you do that on your own time. But if you have any questions about them, just let me know at a later date. Our next section is called the personal and social vulnerability section. Now, this section identifies that everyone will be exposed to impacts of climate change, but not everyone will be affected equally by that impact. You can click below to explore a short list of personal and social vulnerabilities to consider for your local area. Each provides a link to Climate Just data mapping tool, so you can explore localized vulnerability. So each of these says who these groups are, why are they vulnerable, and then that link to the Climate Just data, which would give you your localized risk, is found down at the bottom. We also have included another option to explore local deprivation data, and that is by linking out to the local index of multiple deprivation. So if you click here, whichever region you clicked on at the top will load the IMD map and the data that is associated with that area. And finally, our last section is the adaptation section. Now, this section is based on the expected climate change and resulting impacts in the UK, and it is generic for the UK. It is not specific to your local area. That would be ideal, but unfortunately the data is just not there right now to be able to do that. The adaptations are again sorted by those 6 different climate impact pathways, and each of them can be filtered by theme. So we have themes like nature, towns and cities, health, buildings, business, finance, water supply, things like that. So that's a good way to kind of go from that long list, which is 76 climate adaptations for food and personal security, to a shorter list of 25 that are nature focused. Within each of these drop downs, you have a brief description. You also know which of these is related to another impact pathway. So that kind of helps you identify co-benefits between these impacts. And then each of the references is noted by their reference ID and a direct link to the source. So that allows you to take the information you've gathered here and use evidence-based knowledge to make recommendations, write reports, however you need to use the information. And that is it.
Wow, good effort, Marissa. That was a lot to cover in a short amount of time, and a super exciting looking, very in-depth tool. Just a reminder, thank you very much for that. And just a reminder, we'll have questions after we've had a play from Marissa, and we'll shortly be hearing from Ellen, but wanting to remind you that you can also put questions in the chat that we can hold over and deal with during the call or afterwards if necessary. So handing over to Ellen now. He's going to talk about MACC Hub and Open Clim.
Natalie, thanks ever so much. And yeah, I'm afraid I've got boring slides, not anything really interactive to show you on the screen, but I'll do my best to do this justice. I'm standing in for Jude Hassel today. She's the manager of the London Climate Ready Partnership, who I'm sure many of you will know. But I'm working with Jude very closely on the MACC Hub, which I'm about to tell you a little bit about. And I'm also going to very quickly introduce you to something called the Open Clim tool, which is University of East Anglia owned. And I can't let you play with it because even I'm not allowed to play with it, but hopefully it'll give you a bit of a flavour as to what it's all about. So this is in very quick summary the MACC Hub. Just to say first of all that it's a UKRI and DEFRA co-funded initiative. It started at the back end of last year. It's a 3-year programme. Our role and London Climate Ready Partnership's role is essentially to provide knowledge exchange and stakeholder engagement across the whole of England. So I work for an organisation called Sustainability West Midlands, which, as the name suggests, we are based in the West Midlands, but a lot of our adaptation work is actually wider than that now anyway. We do a lot of work across the whole of the country. And just to add further complexity, I live in Edinburgh, hence the hoodie. It's not as warm as it is in London. But this is the kind of very quick summary of what the MACC Hub is all about. So it stands for Maximising Adaptation to Climate Change. That's what MACC means. And this is what it's all about. It's about assessing barriers to awareness and engagement with adaptation by diverse publics. By that we mean basically a range of stakeholders, be it the public or indeed local government, combined authorities, NHS, business, private sector, you name it. We're probably going to be engaging with people over the course of the next 2.5 years or so. There is a lot of emphasis on it being a UK approach. DEFRA obviously look after England with respect to adaptation, but very much the other nations have also been heavily involved as well. And actually, England can learn a heck of a lot from particularly Wales and Scotland in their approaches to wellbeing and adaptation, as it says in number 2. So we're going to be doing that, and we work together closely with organisations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, kind of equivalents to us on knowledge exchange. Increased understanding of system complexity on adaptation because it is complex, and there's a lot of sort of contradictions and sort of confusion around who should be doing what when it comes to adaptation as well. Linked to that is identifying and addressing aspects of policy, legislation and regulation that hold back adaptation progress, acceleration. Some of you may have seen the Climate Change Committee's report that came out a couple of weeks ago that was very critical of our approach on climate adaptation to this point. And our role in the MACC is to try and help to change that as much as we can. And also part of that, of course, is around enhancing accessibility of climate model. But actually, I would argue of everything we're doing on adaptation needs to be more accessible, needs to be more understood by the user who needs to understand them. And just to kind of emphasize the complexity of the MACC itself, there's a lot of partners involved. I'm sure some of you here are quite familiar with these UKRI bids. This is the first one we've been involved with. just this diagram blows my mind, let alone the actual way it works. But King's College London are the managers of the MACC. But as you can see, there's lots of other academic and non-academic partners involved. SWM and London Climate Ready Partnership are very much non-academic partners. Our role, as well as stakeholder engagement, is to provide a little bit of practical experience, practitioner experience of the people who need outputs. So it's not just another piece of research or academic output that may not be used by people on the ground, essentially. So that's what our role is there. But there's lots of partners involved. Obviously, I won't go into the detail now, but I can for anyone interested. And the final kind of thing just to say on the MACC is what do we hope to do with it? It's the so what thing, essentially. So broadly bringing together the adaptation community across the UK, which is a mess at the moment. I think there are great people out there and things going on, but nothing kind of holding that together in a kind of coordinated place. So that's what we hope to start to do with this. Draw out and share what works, essentially case studies, good practice that's already happening. There are pockets of really good practice, but again, it's not known about. Can it be replicated, scaled up, etc.? The NAP is not falling asleep. It's National Adaptation Programme. That's what the NAP stands for. That's something that government has to do every 5 years. The last one was done 2 years ago in 2023. It is basically the government's document saying this is what they plan to do to further adaptation, and NAP 4 will be due out in 2028, which is just after the MACC hub finishes. So the timings are intentional. So we aim to influence, directly influence government policy effectively on adaptation and what the government aims to do. Aim to accelerate adaptation action, goes without saying, and drive a well-adapted UK that centres vulnerability. As Holly very well showed in her map for the London, we want to demonstrate who actually is going to be affected by climate change. It's people, you know, who have certain demographics, etc., live in certain, you know, exposure to certain hazards. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing includes people who have those particular needs. There are about 100 million work packages as part of the MACC. I think it's actually about 12, but it feels like 100 million at times. One of which is around climate data, and that includes the Open Clim project, which, as I say, is very much run by University of East Anglia. If there are any questions about Open Clim, I probably won't be able to answer them, but I can take them away for future answering from the team there. I'm actually catching up with them tomorrow, as it happens. What is Open Clim? It is essentially a combination of climate projections and scenarios, and also, Marissa in her presentation referenced the Met Office Local Authority Climate Service. It's essentially elements of that, along with various, as it says there on the kind of right-hand bit of the diagram, socioeconomic scenarios, changes to vulnerability and exposure kind of mapped together, leading to impact. So it's okay, again, it's a bit of the so what piece. Okay, so we've got more heat, we've got more flooding. What could be the impact of that? And it covers the whole of the country. And I'll give you a very quick, this is as far as my interactive bit goes, I'm afraid, for this particular presentation, but hopefully it gives you a snapshot of what the tool looks like. This is showing Norfolk for no reason other than it was the one I had available to show you. And this is showing how, if we did nothing in terms of climate change, this is how it could affect wheat yields agriculturally over the next many, many years, based on different climate scenarios. So the one on the left being where we are now, the one in the middle being if we saw globally an increase in climate of 2 degrees, on the right of 4 degrees. Again, like Marissa was saying, the worst case scenario. And it basically shows, surprise, surprise, if we did nothing, the worst case scenario will have problems with wheat yields. That's essentially what that map shows. This is my very non-technical explanation of the map. If you want the technical version, UEA, the people to ask, but it gives you an idea of kind of what sort of outputs come from it. Maps, data, tables, summaries, like the key points there are really useful as well. And as you'll probably just about make out at the top, you've got the 4 kind of headline categories of agriculture, probably not so relevant for London, but biodiversity will be, Heat certainly will be, and hydrology certainly will be as well. So there are lots of different things that can come out of that. But it is still very much in the test case stage. So as part of the MACC Hub, what we're doing is trying to apply OpenClim to actual real scenarios. And one of those will be in London, working with Jude to look at mapping aspects of London. So there will be obviously opportunities, Holly, to integrate with what you're doing in London already, seeing how they kind of marry up as well. SWM is leading on the rural example in Somerset. We're working with the NHS in Somerset on adaptation anyway, so it's a good opportunity to kind of enhance that piece of work because there's lots of health metrics in OpenClim as well. So what we're doing in the autumn, I'm being very vague on timescales there, but it is about the autumn. We're running a couple of workshops to help upskill people basically on OpenClim. It doesn't have to be just people in the case study areas. We'll be using those as examples to kind of get people to play around with. But anyone who's interested in this sort of thing, who might be able to help it with their day-to-day jobs basically can attend those, and we can obviously share that with this group as and when they are up and running. And as I've mentioned, there will be opportunities in those workshops not to just focus on OpenClim as well. The workshop will be a broader, this is what climate data is out there and maps are out there, this is what you can do in terms of using them type session. So therefore the likes of the Local Authority Climate Service, LCAT, the work in London already can be at least included as part of that conversation as well. So I'll keep it very simple for now. There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots going on with the MACC. I'm happy to answer further questions now, but also you can get in touch with me at a later date. Natalie, thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So